we Parkies need. I know it's barely got off the ground, I know it's embryonic, but I'm so pleased to be patron of something with such huge ambitions, such big ideas, and such lashings of hope. And you do know, of course, that hope thrives on hard cash. First of all, an apology. I've been a broadcaster all my working life, so I'm pretty used to speaking to the world, whether live or recorded, whether via a camera or a microphone. But today, I'm pretty nervous. Worried if I'll make it through to the end. It's my voice, you see. By nature, I'm both fatalistic and optimistic. I was diagnosed with high blood pressure when I was 30, which was only a couple of years ago. And so I tend to think of every day as a bonus. I had a fantastically enjoyable career covering politics in Westminster, Europe and the US, then back again in the UK all the time. Like beauty queens of yesteryear, indulging my ambition to travel and meet people. Thanks to my lovely wife Jo, who's here somewhere. Hi Jo. I've been able to combine this with a wonderful family life. It's all been pretty good so far. At the time of the diagnosis, one of my favourite songs had the lyrics, "Blessings drop by my right hand, gratitude is a must." I couldn't agree more. I was determined to be cheerful about the whole thing, regarding it as an irritation and a nuisance, no more. That mood has largely survived, but Parky has since dealt a low blow to a big-mouth broadcaster with a love for writing. It's dropped a bomb on my ability to communicate. It's now very difficult to type. I can still touch type, but in painful, slow motion. It takes me about 5 times as long to dictate something and then edit it. Dictate to a machine, not to a person, by the way. In the first draft of this, Parkinson's came out as pocket croquexons. So I'm not impressed with the software's inability to make out what I'm saying. It's not behaving any worse than some friends and family. In the cut and thrust of conversation, I frequently find myself ignored, literally unheard. Even to my own ears, I sound querulous and pathetic. I do feel diminished, my sense of self undermined. That's the downside, but as so often with Pocket's Parkinson's, there is an upside. I listen more. Also drop more papers. That's one thing I hope this centre might encourage, getting the professionals to listen more to the real experts on Parkinson's, those who live with it day after day. Sorry, I'm going to have to properly manage this. Yeah. I'm also listening to a lot more because I've raised my voice, along with 5 others, including Jeremy Paxman, a High Court judge, and the writer of The Vicar of Dibley. We've just launched a new podcast of the condition called Movers and Shakers. And we're a pretty diverse bunch. 5 old white guys and a younger white woman, all pretty comfortably off. Diverse. Yeah, we're pretty conscious of our privilege and we're going to check it. Now, the diversity is in the range of symptoms. There's me and my voice. Gillian can shake uncontrollably or they suddenly freeze up. The judge has horrible nightmares. Apparently once he ran naked into the streets because of them, which I don't know I'd like to have seen, but I'd like to have recorded. A couple of us has the classic hand tremor. Jeremy falls over quite a bit, but his worst symptom seems to be depression. Paul talks a lot about constipation and erectile dysfunction, but then he has a new career as a stand-up comedian. And his relentless cheerfulness acts as a counterbalance to Jeremy's deep gloom. But that diversity is typical of this pesky problem. It's not one thing, it isn't even 2 things. It's so many different things that some think it isn't even a thing at all. Even the language slows and shakes violently. Some say because the symptoms are so varied it can't be called a condition. Some people don't like the term Parkinson's disease. You can't catch it, by the way, if you sit next to somebody. For others, Parkinson's sufferers is out. Either they find it demeaning or maybe they actually enjoy it. I wouldn't go that far. It's just Parky. It's not an enemy or a friend, it's just me, a new me. What does it mean to me, day by day? I shuffle a lot, stagger a little, and do everything in very slow motion. My daily life has become an inelegant Tai Chi, the form called perhaps Graceless Frog Misses the Pond. Oh, and I drool a bit, never an attractive look. Book now to avoid sitting next to me at lunch. Sometimes I feel I'm trapped inside a hard shell from which I shout, "It's still me inside." And then, has to be said, there's the fear, the gut-wrenching, stomach-dropping realisation of how bad it can get, probably will get. Punch to the solar plexus. When you hear about... Sorry about this. Punch to the solar plexus when you hear about freezing for the first time. When Jeremy told me he could no longer read a book. Or when you see an email about hallucinations. One involving a polar bear with a sword and wheelchairs. You ask yourself, how much tighter will this shell bind? I'm being as frank as I can, but frankly, sometimes stuck in the sand is a pretty good place for your head to be with pocket crock essence. If it can be scary, the tremendous upside of doing the podcast is close contact with the people going through the same thing. That's often the comedy of recognition. Fun, funny, not even tragic comedy, just comedy. We live in an age where, thank goodness, the stiffest of stiff upper lips are beginning to quiver. We should talk openly without embarrassment, about something that isn't our fault. I was on a podcast the other day, a BBC newscast, talking about both Trump and Parkinson's. And I'm not quite sure what the connection was, apart from my expertise in both. But on it with me was one of the presenters, Seema Kadech's dad, Suresh, who has Parkinson's as well. And he was talking about having to wear a nappy, and I just thought it was amazingly brave to come on BBC, not a broadcaster, an ordinary guy to talk about wearing a nappy. It's important we do these things. The podcast feels a need and a hunger, even, for community, and so will, I hope, this centre. And something more, this centre can be a counterweight to careless care. We've had a flood of emails with a distressingly not golden thread, but a leaden thread. Not every case, but too many cases. People felt after their diagnosis ill-treated and discarded, even when diagnosed. There are many brilliant consultants, neurologists. Perhaps that's part of the problem. They're brilliant at biochemistry, brilliant at the inner life of neurons, but too many are utterly hopeless at dealing with a human being in distress before them. We've heard stories of neurologists staring bored out the window as they deliver this devastating verdict on the future of somebody's life. One person being told not to share the news because it would only upset those it told. Another who asked, "What happens now?" was told, "You go away and get worse." Now, this isn't to be taken in any sense of criticism of an overworked, overstretched and grotesquely underfunded NHS. To misquote Charlton Heston, "Come for the NHS, and you have to prize it out of my warm and trembling hands." But there is a desperate need to treat the whole person with all their varied, diverse needs. Yes, drugs are important, life-changing and life-improving, but they're not the whole story. Thank you. My own personal page turners. When I was diagnosed, I was aware exercise was pretty important, so I asked the consultant what to do. Her reply, "Oh, I don't know, ask the Parkinson's nurse." That's why we need this centre, to bring together all singing, all dancing, comprehensive treatment, counselling and physiotherapy, circuit training and occupational health. And I mean that all singing, all dancing. Quite literally, there will be singing here later on, I believe, and yes, there may well be dancing one day. A personal plan for every individual under one roof. It's hugely ambitious to be a global leader, and why not? We need that sort of ambition. Pocket's crock essence, Parkinson's, is the disease that does respect the European Convention of Human Rights. It's not a death sentence, but it is a life sentence, currently without prospect of parole. We shouldn't be locked in solitary and isolation, and with your help we can turn it into an open prison where the screws aren't too tight. Thank you.